Welcome, everybody. There's still people filing on in. We'll get started in just a couple minutes, okay? Yeah, definitely some people still coming on in. All right. Be a little bit patient. I know we're going to be talking about social skills. Patience is a really important social skill. So let's give everyone just another minute. All right. Very nice. A really nice turnout again. I just like I said 2 weeks ago, I'm very humbled by the number of people that are interested in social skills. 2 weeks ago, we talked about kids and getting them active with social distancing, and today we're talking more about an adult thing, which is teaching you to have awesome social skills in the workplace, which is really important because it's going to bring you success. Okay, I think we can get started. All right. First of all, no audio problems for those of you that were here 2 weeks ago. I was really struggling with the audio. I've totally switched platforms, going with Zoom now, so it's already looking like the experience is going to be even better. Thank you again for participating. Again, I really appreciate the turnout and the interest in social skills. I have to start by saying I hope you're all staying safe during this very difficult time. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I know you're feeling probably the same way that myself and my family are feeling. I'm here in the office in my home. I've been here for 9 weeks, seeing clients and running all my social skills groups and whatnot. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm on the bottom of your screen. I'm actually going to facilitate this different than a couple weeks ago if you were with us. There is a chat, and in the chat, I actually have it on my upper screen here so I can see it live. If you have any questions or any comments, just go to the chat, type it on in, and I'm going to do the best I can. I know there's a lot of people that are attending, but I'm going to do the very best that I can to get to all your questions, or at least respond in some way, shape, or form to your comments. So I thank you for that, and definitely feel free to use the chat. If you haven't heard me present before, I almost always like to start a presentation with a story. This one, it's obviously a social skills story, and it's social skills in the workplace. Before we do that, if you wouldn't mind, if you're in a safe place, don't do this if you're driving. Sit back in your chair. If you can close your eyes, take a deep breath. Please try to visualize yourself in the workplace. It can be a current position or maybe a position in the past where you dealt with an extremely difficult colleague, where you had a bad boss, someone was just unpleasant to be with in your workplace. Take a moment, think about that person, about what that experience was like for you, the thoughts that you had, and even if you can genuinely get that visceral feel for what it was like to be around that person. Take a moment and do that. I'm actually going to get rid of the slides so you can see me while I do an intro. All right, very good. And now that you have that person in your mind, I'm going to share my story about that. Many years ago, I actually worked with someone who really, really struggled relating with all the coworkers. It was, unfortunately, this was a person who was in a position of authority and had a supervisory role over others, and he just lacked any semblance of positive social interactions at all. His attitude, it's my way or the highway. And my funny saying is, his idea was, you can agree with me or be wrong. And there was no consideration for the viewpoints of others. But I'll tell you this: if you dared to disagree with him, you'd either get yelled at, or he often say in a condescending way, just think about it. Think about it. And people would be like, well, but I did think about it. That's why I said what I said. Unfortunately, he would assign tasks to admin staff that were way outside the scope of their job, and things that were more appropriate for a personal assistant, demeaning things. The staff around him described him as pompous, as narcissistic. They said a few other choice words too, but because this is a family program, I'm not going to say what else they said. And very unsurprisingly, when this guy went on vacation, there was peace in the office. There was calmness. So what happened? You know what happened. The work environment was toxic. There was chronic tension when he was around. All the associates were walking around on eggshells, and the admin staff too. People didn't enjoy coming to work. And how can you do a good job if you don't enjoy coming to work? Employees quit, obviously. Good people, hardworking people, people that are hard to come by in the workforce. And I'll almost guarantee you that as you're listening, you know somebody like this. He was the type of person that if you and colleagues were hanging out at the water cooler on a Monday morning, talking about what you did over the weekend or talking about the football game from Sunday, and this person rounded the corner, the whole group would disperse. Like everybody would take off in a different direction. Just, unfortunately, total lack of couth, total lack of etiquette, really just a total lack of social skills. So that's my story about social skills in the workplace. We're gonna work, and my goal today is to present as many social skills as possible to make your workplace experience better than that. Let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Christopher Haley. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I'm the owner of a private practice called the Social Skills Center. I've actually been teaching social skills to children, adolescents, adults, and older adults for the last 21 years. Here, I'm up in the Northern Virginia and Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. I've been teaching the skills in an individual or one-on-one format, and also in a group format. I actually facilitate 12 different social skills groups every single week to kids as young as 5 and 6, and again, all the way up through adults. And I'm really excited. Over the last several weeks, we've taken the Social Skills Center, and I'm proud because we've expanded it nationwide and now worldwide, where we can teach these essential skills to really anyone, wherever they may be. I've always been a huge believer that social skills, I call them essential life skills. In that, if you're a really good communicator, if you're an exceptional listener, we'll get to that in a second. If you're good at networking and connecting with people in the workplace, you are going to be successful. I regularly say that social skills correlate higher with your success than school grades. Whether you're a graduate of high school or a graduate of Harvard, if you are good at this, if you're good in your interactions and connections with people, my belief is you're going places in the workplace. How important are social skills in the workplace? Paramount. They're huge. Make or break. I think that great social skills almost always lead to workplace success. Now, let me get back to the slides. Not the most computer literate person, but I'm getting better at this. Actually, sometimes I go off on a tangent. I actually went to college from 1988 to 1992. When did computers become popular? Right after that. So I never quite learned it. But I'm getting better. Here we go. All right, I hope you all can see that. That was our opening slide. So let's go to the first one here. There we go. Whoop, I went too far. I had a feeling that was going to happen. Okay, got it. I'm going to start with the basics. I'm going to review things that you already know, but things that, again, are so important in the workplace. Number one, speak clearly. Seems basic, right? Seems like a thing, yeah, we all know that. But the purpose of speaking is to deliver a message. And if you're not delivering that message because you're not speaking clearly, communication is lost. So if you have a tendency to mumble a little bit, if you're a low talker, yeah, I reference Seinfeld all the time, my favorite sitcom. There's an episode of The Low Talker. You talk like this and you couldn't really hear her. If someone talks really, really, really fast, that's something that I do sometimes because my brain's working and I'm trying to keep up with it. In the workplace, you don't want to make the listener, you don't want to make them have to work to hear you. That leads to disconnect. So if you're not speaking clearly, there's going to be a disconnect. Here's my recommendation. Practice talking in front of a mirror. Practice talking with a spouse. Practice talking with a friend. And in addition to doing that, I'm going to highly recommend every now and again, throw in a genuine smile. If you're speaking clearly and throwing in a genuine smile, you're almost guaranteed to connect with the person you're communicating with. The print on the chat is small, but Isra Mema, yes, the PowerPoint slides will be available to download later. We're going to be sending out an email after that. Thank you for asking. I had mentioned actively listening before. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. I'm going to have y'all raise your hands, even though I can't see you. Raise your hand out there if you think that you're a great listener. I'm going to know it if you do. So raise your hand if you think you're a great listener. Well, wow. Yeah, everybody's raising their hand. I was kind of thinking that everyone would just like do this. I didn't know that you could raise your hand there. So now they're all coming up on my screen. But thank you for doing that. All right. To me, I've asked this question to many live audiences when I present on social skills. To me, asking people if they're a great listener is like asking a group of guys, are you an awesome driver? Bam! Every guy out there thinks they're a great driver. Every guy does. Almost everyone thinks they're a great listener. But here you go. This is how you can tell. This is how you can tell if you're a great listener. When someone is speaking to you, if you are already formulating your response, then to me, that does not fit my definition of a great listener. A great listener will sit back, wait for that person to finish, then be able to quickly formulate the response and then respond. And also with active listening, don't forget in the workplace, you want to paraphrase back to the person or group that you're speaking with. You want to paraphrase back what you're hearing. For example, so what I hear you saying, Joe, is, or if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that, and then blah, 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 then fill in the blank. That ultimately is what active listening is all about. Excuse me. And again, you all know this, maintaining eye contact. Eye contact means different things in different cultures. You're probably aware of that. In our culture, eye contact from a social skills standpoint is consistent with confidence. And there used to be the big three. I say used to be, I'll tell you why in a second. There used to be the big three things when you introduce yourself to someone. There's eye contact, a nice smile, and then a firm handshake. And that's how you introduced yourself to someone in a socially appropriate manner. The handshake, we'll get to that later. That may be a thing of the past. But for some people, eye contact, it just comes naturally. It's just a natural thing. For others, not so much. With eye contact, I'm going to teach you a cheat. Yes, we can cheat on this. Normally, I don't like teaching cheats, but with social skills, every now and again, you can teach a cheat. If you're sitting in front of me, I'm actually sitting at a desk in my office, like I said. I actually have two chairs in front of me that are maybe the social distancing 6 feet away or so. If you're speaking with me at my desk and you don't feel comfortable with eye contact, you can do one of two things. You can either stare right here, right between my eyes, or even better, you can look at the tip of my nose. And if I'm looking across at you and we're conversing, I'll never even know that you're not giving me direct eye contact. For those of you that struggle, look right there. Tell them to look right at the tip of my nose, and I'll think that you're looking right in my eyes. The flexible mindset. I have another business where I teach the mindset of success to other professionals who are trying to grow large private practices like I have. So I'm really big on a mindset of success. And with mindset, this is a setting in your mind. A setting in your mind. Now, in the workplace, we always have to understand that people think differently. That's okay. That's okay. Not you can agree with me and be wrong, People think differently. We in the workplace want to appreciate the viewpoints of other people and be tolerant of them. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but to respectfully say, I understand what your point is. However, this is the way I think. That's totally fine. That's totally appropriate. Have that flexible mindset. People think differently. A couple more. Be positive. Obviously, you want to be upbeat. You want to be optimistic. I have 26 employees in my other practice, which is psychological and life skills associates. And when someone comes to me, be upbeat. Be solution focused. Be a team player. Be cooperative. Again, these are things that you guys already know. And what doesn't work in the workplace from a social skills standpoint, being a Debbie Downer, being a complainer, being always negative. This is wrong, that's wrong, without coming up with or trying to come up with potential solutions for it. And then finally, again, you know this, body language speaks volumes. The research, they've done many research studies on this. The percentages are always vary, that they vary. 70%, maybe 80% of communication is nonverbal. What are we talking about? Body posture. This in a meeting says a lot. Even more important than body posture, facial expressions. Your facial expressions are very telling. And in the workplace, you don't want to confuse people with facial expressions. There are certain people out there who always look mad, even when they're not, who always have the puss, I call it have the puss on, even though they might not be feeling that way. That's confusing for those people around you. So you want to be mindful of those things, and you want your facial expression to be consistent with how you're feeling. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be mad. I'm not saying don't be those things, but just have a facial expressions that are consistent with that. As I'm going to be moving on, but as always, in the spirit of the Social Skills Center, I like to think outside the box and come up with other social skills that are things that you might not have considered prior to joining us today. Let's move on to that. Let's see if I can get that next slide. There we go. Didn't mess it up that time. Have you all considered these things? Have you considered, number one, it says wear a mask. I'm being literal here given what's going on, but it's really metaphorically speaking. What I mean by wear a mask is we need to have empathy, and we need to be considerate of the people around us in the workplace. When my wife and I go grocery shopping, and with coronavirus going on, it always seems like there's like this one holdout person who doesn't wear the mask, the rebel without a cause. I'm too tough for this. I don't need to do it. Well, what I think is, dude, it's not about you. There are people around you, and the purpose of wearing a mask, it's not to keep yourself safe, but it's to keep others around you safe. So again, I say wear a mask in the workforce, and if and when you make it back to work, hopefully be sooner rather than later. Literally wear that mask if that's what the CDC or that's whatever the rules are at the time. But metaphorically wear the mask, not just to keep and protect yourself, but to be considerate and empathic of those around you. Wear that mask. There are many different communication styles. We have on one end passive, we have on the other end aggressive. Assertiveness is typically right in the middle. An assertive communication style in the workplace is what works best. If you're a little bit passive, if you're a little bit more of a wallflower, this leads to not being respected. It leads to your opinions not being considered. And then if you're aggressive, like the gentleman I spoke of, I said gentleman, if you're aggressive, he wasn't gentle. If you're aggressive like the person I spoke of earlier, then people walk on eggshells around you. People don't want to be around you. That's where the crowd disperses when you come around the corner. Being assertive is you're speaking your piece, you're saying what you need to do, but you're doing so in a respectful way. Be exceptional at small talk. The most socially skilled people know a little bit of information about a lot of different things. They're able to jump into conversations to gain connection with others. So if you're in the break room, for example, and two people are talking about, my example I always use is quilting. I don't know anything about quilting, but if I have colleagues that are talking about quilting and it's appropriate for me to jump into that conversation, even though I don't know anything about it, I can ask them engaging questions on it. I can say, what type of fabric do you use? Do you buy your fabric at Joann's? What does it look like? What are the patterns? What do you do with your quilts after you make them? Do you hang them on a wall? Do you use them as blankets? So knowing a little bit of information about a lot of things, whether that be politics or sports or entertainment or updates on where coronavirus is at in your area. Knowing a little bit of information about a lot of things it's a really wonderful social skill to possess. I always recommend that before you start your day in the workplace, if you go to a web page, an MSN, a CNN, maybe your local TV show, Fox or ABC or whatever, you go to their homepage and you just scan it. And you arm yourself with that information so that when social conversation and communication comes up at work, that you're able to jump in any conversation. Again, sometimes I go off on tangents just to make a point. If my wife and I ever go out to a dinner party, especially with people we don't know, not only do I spend time with, hey, what are you wearing and what and all that, but I spend time doing research on hot topics. And again, I arm myself with that information so that I can engage in any conversation or bring up interesting topics. It really works great from a social skills standpoint. All right, let me just go over to the chats real quick. Vicky, thank you for coming in. What about authenticity? If you're wearing a mask, it requires a lot of energy and might burn you out. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. I agree with the authenticity piece too. I think that for me anyway, I don't want to speak for everybody else, but for me, safety takes priority over anything. But I think authenticity, being genuine, we'll get to the being genuine in a second, but being genuine, I think is a really important skill. We'll get there in two more. Let me just take a quick sip of water, 1 second. And number 4 on this slide, attend work functions. I know many people that in the workplace that when there's a work social function going on, that they'll just hang out at their desk or cubicle and read a book. I think that's okay some of the time, again, because you have to be, just like Vicki said, you have to be authentic, you have to be you. But if it's Bob's birthday party and people are going to celebrate at TGI Fridays or Ruby Tuesdays, I think to go out and hang with people and socialize will do you a world of good when it comes to things like promotions, when it comes to things like advancing up the ranks. There's the old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and maybe that's not right, but that is reality. And in the workplace, it's those connections that you make that really are going to foster success. Not the best one at the job or the smartest person, but those who are able to connect with the higher ups. If you have multiple offices throughout the United States and the CEO is flying into town and there's an opportunity to hang out at happy hour with that person, do the best you can to attend those. Again, it's great to network, great to connect with people. And the last one on this slide, become genuinely interested in others is one of the best ways to connect and develop relationships with people. Real quick, Marnie, what about when, thank you for chatting, Marnie. What about when you're not invited? Well, see, if you're not invited to social events, I totally get that. If you're not invited, can't go. That would be socially that's interesting. Marnie just added, what about when you're not invited to social events because of the toxic person? That is a challenge. I was going to end with this, but I'll tell you right now, another webinar I'm going to do in the near future is how you deal with these different personalities in the workplace. I will definitely tackle that one then, because I have a whole bunch of strategies for you. And how can you be sure, from Lisa, thank you for coming in, Lisa. How can you be sure that your passion for something doesn't come across as being aggressive? Very good point. If here's my response to that. If one person in the workplace deems you aggressive, then usually the issue is with that person. If multiple people perceive you that way, then it's time to look in the mirror and think a little bit about, why are people seeing me this way? And even more importantly, what can I do about it? Being genuinely interested in others. This is actually an idea that I borrowed from my favorite social skills book of all time, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Is written all the way back in 1936. It's a classic. If you haven't read it, definitely. It's a very short read. How to Win Friends and Influence People. You know this. This is America. Most people love to talk about who? Who do they love to talk about? Themselves. Me. People love to talk about themselves, brag about their accolades, talk about their kids being on the honor roll, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, take advantage of that. In that, when people start talking about themselves, become genuinely interested in it and engage them in that. That's how you connect. Here's a great story demonstrating that. Dale Carnegie once was invited to a dinner party. A large dinner party where he didn't know anyone. He sat down at a table next to a guy, just met him that moment, and struck up a conversation with him. It turned out that the guy, ready for this one? He was a botanist. A botanist. Could have been worse. He could have sat next to a psychologist. He would have gotten analyzed the whole time. So maybe he was lucky he was a botanist. Anyway. So he starts chatting with this guy throughout this dinner party. And the guy obviously is talking about his botany. And Dale asks intriguing, engaging questions to maintain the conversation and keep the connection going. At the end of the dinner party, the host comes to the table and the botanist says, your friend Dale here is a most interesting and exceptional conversationalist. And he knows so much about botany. And Dale's shaking. He's like thinking in his head, I know a lot about botany. This is his exact quote. I know as much about the anatomy of a penguin. The anatomy of a penguin. I know that's how much I know about botany. All he was doing was listening to what the guy was saying and asking these questions back and forth to keep the conversation alive. And what the listener took from that is, wow, look how smart this guy is on botany. Become genuinely interested in others. And the next slide. Have you also considered these things, guys? Here's a big one. Remembering people's names. Remembering people's names. One of my favorite quotes. Words have meaning, but names have power. Names have power. How many times has this happened to you? All right. You're in the workplace and a coworker is introducing a new colleague around the office, just walking around from person to person. So the coworker brings the new person to you and you exchange names, and then there's some pleasantries. Hey, welcome to the office. I look forward to working with you, blah, blah, blah. And the new person turns to you and says, very nice to meet you, Chris. And you say, yeah, very nice to meet you. You. I'm the social skills. I'm guilty of it. I'm the expert and I'm guilty of that. That's happened to me before. or worse yet, how many times in the community have you run into the same person again and again and again, and you've just forgotten their name? My tip for everybody, if you're in that situation, is just to politely and respectfully say, rather than feel uncomfortable, hey, excuse me, I've forgotten your name. Would you kindly remind me? Simple. Then you know it and you'll remember it. My favorite name story, because names are powerful, my favorite name story of all time, this is an interesting one. When I first became owner of the practice 20 years ago, I needed to set up a business bank account, and a stone's throw away from the practice was a large national bank. So I go into the bank, I set up my account, and then every Friday at the end of the week, after my work week, I would go into the bank and do whatever my deposit or my banking needs were. Now, when I first started doing this, they would say, excuse me, sir, can I have your ID? Absolutely, that makes sense. They don't know me from Adam. Cool, here's my ID. All right, that happened again and again where they'd ask for my ID. I'd always call them by name, but I had a little cheat sheet because they were name tags. I didn't have a name tag, so I understood. But when they're asking you for your ID the 9th time, the 10th time, When they're asking for your ID after 4 months, when you just saw them the week before and you've seen them like 17 times, it got frustrating. I was a number to them. I was a number and not a name. So here's the deal. Here's the deal. I took my business elsewhere. That's what I did. I took it elsewhere. Now, because this is a social skills webinar, it wouldn't be demonstrating couth if I were to share the name of the Bank of America that did that to me. Yes, that did that to me. I took my business. I took my business to a local bank. And I've been with them now for probably 19 years. Every time I walk into this bank on a Friday, it's like Norm walking into Cheers. It's like, hey, Chris, hey, Dr. Haley, how you doing? How are the wife? How are the kids? It's that personal vibe, that personal attention. They call you by name. You know, the good old other bank, they lost my business because I was a number to them. Hey, here's a lost skill in 2020. Admitting wrongdoings quickly. I didn't do it. It's not my fault. I don't hear this one from adults much, but from kids. He made me do it. How did he make you do it? Our society is filled with blame. It's time to stand up and for us to start taking responsibility. It's okay to make mistakes. You know, again, I own practices where people make mistakes. That's fine. Tell me I made a mistake. You'll apologize for it. But I'll also add this. Sometimes an apology isn't good enough. You know, if you say I'm sorry and make the same mistake and say I'm sorry again and make the same mistake, I don't think you're sorry. Say I'm sorry and then give me a plan to rectify it. I'm sorry I made the mistake. It won't happen again. And here's my plan to deal with it. That's how you deal with wrongdoings. Not to cause you guys anxiety, not to cause you all anxiety, but another recommendation I have, you probably weren't expecting this one, is to present every time. Present every time. Out of all the skills that are on these slides, nothing has helped me more than presenting every time I had the opportunity. Y'all know what the number one fear of Americans is? The number one fear of Americans, they've done multiple studies on this. It is not the fear of death. No, it isn't. Nope. It is the fear of public speaking. The fear of public speaking. So I highly recommend if you're in a business meeting and you're sitting in a boardroom and you have an opportunity to get up to talk a little bit to others about what your project is, or you have an opportunity to do this, to do a webinar or whatever. Take advantage of those opportunities. It has helped me so much in growing my businesses and really being able to connect with as many people as possible. Although I didn't start off with a bang. I started off with a total bust. Again, 20 years ago when I joined the practice, my specialty was always social skills. So I was invited by a hospital to do a talk on Asperger's. I was very green, very not seasoned, didn't have a whole lot of public speaking experience, and the room was super hot. And I started to sweat, and it was very noticeable. I think the information, how I look back, I'm like, ooh, what a panic that was. My heart's beating a little bit just thinking about it. It was a tough one. I think I shared quality information, but the presentation didn't go all that well. And so I walked away to my car with my tail between my legs. And as I was driving home, in my head, this is in my head, I'm like, I can turn left and never do that again because that was a horrible experience. Or I can turn right and get back right in the seat and keep doing them again and again and again. I turned right in life. I turned right, and I'm glad that I did that. Present. Anytime you have an opportunity, take advantage of it. If you don't know of Toastmasters, some of you I'm sure do. Toastmasters is a national organization where you can really gain exceptional public speaking skills. You start slow and they work you up. It's a fantastic organization. Excuse me. Real quick, I didn't put this on there. I just added this morning. Conflict resolution. It's unavoidable in the workplace. It's inevitable. Different people, different personalities. Always remember, conflict resolution does not have to be win-lose. Conflict resolution, think of it win-win. If I'm here and you're here, let's meet in the middle where we both can walk away with a smile on our faces. And finally, I'd mentioned this a little bit earlier. I was going to talk about, I just ran out of time to talk about it, and I knew I would. Different personalities in the workplace is going to be an upcoming webinar. How do you deal with the gossiper? How do you deal with the person, the blamer we just talked about? How do you deal with the narcissist, like I spoke of earlier, or the passive aggressive person, or like Marnie said, like the toxic person? So keep watching in future weeks, and I will definitely present a webinar to teach you how to deal with those specific individuals in the workplace. Excuse me. So let me summarize with this. Let me get to the next slide, and then I'll summarize everything. Let me summarize with this. The key. Let's see, slideshow. Let me see if I can get it back. Play from start. We'll do that. There we go. The key to all of these different social skills is self-awareness on your part. Self-awareness is the key. I did it again because I'm on the wrong screen. Move the cursor. Now I'm on the right screen. Self-awareness is the key. You have to know yourself. You have to know your strengths, and you have to know your limitations. When it comes to the list that I provided, I'm sure you're strong at some of those. Continue to excel at them. The things you're not great at, maybe the public speaking is one of them. Practice that. Become proficient at it. You can do it. Based on my experience 20 years ago with the Asperger's presentation, if I can do it, I know you can too. And we always have to remember, you can't change others. You can, you're still not seeing can you see my screen? You know what, let me do this. Somebody can't see can you guys see can you see my screen? Can someone type in the chat? No, okay, 1 second. I'm just gonna stop the sharing. Now you can see me. Okay, I gotcha. All right, so I mentioned the self-awareness. You can't change others. You can only change yourself. Shows only the end of the slideshow. Okay, can you see me now? Okay, now you can see me. I'm back. I talk about learning skills in the real world. Computer literacy definitely ain't my forte. That'll guarantee you. Everyone's coming in with yes. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. We're all going to be back in the workplace at some point. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later. For everyone's sake, I hope it's sooner, as long as we can get back in a safe way. From my standpoint, though, from a social skills standpoint, will it be the same? What's most interesting is my wife she does commercial interior design and architecture as her background. That's what her job is. And just yesterday, I was walking past her. She's working from home too, and I walked past her computer, and I couldn't believe what I saw. There are companies now in the workplace that are developing office furniture with plexiglass barriers, plexiglass walls, so that if you're like go to a meeting at a bank and the banker's sitting across from you and there's two chairs, there's now they make it with big plexiglass around, so that's a barrier. Or in cubicles now, they're all surrounded with this plexiglass stuff. Is the workplace going to be the same? Architects are designing space now with social distancing in mind. What does that mean for a waiting room, for example? In the waiting rooms in my offices, are we going to have to start changing that? Well, only time will tell. Only time will tell. And I had mentioned at the start, given that, who knows if a handshake is going to be the standard practice? It used to be the smile, the eye contact, and the firm handshake. Maybe not anymore. Maybe not anymore. So as these rules of social engagement change, so will the recommendations that we in the Social Skills Center are going to offer to our clients. We're going to offer things that are socially appropriate and safe. Might not be handshakes anymore. Certainly one major change is going to be more telehealth sessions. That I'll guarantee you, not just for psychology, but for everything. And again, like I said earlier, we've expanded our Social Skills Center to now do coaching worldwide in both individual and group formats. To learn more about us, please visit our website, which is socialskillscenter.com. We have a Facebook business page, which is called the Social Skills Center. And you can also stay connected with us by joining our Facebook group, which is called Social Skills Circle. I hope some of you guys can get on there and join. I'd love to have you on there. Sorry again, I went a little over just like last time. I appreciate you all being here. I'm definitely going to be back in 2 weeks with another social skills webinar, and I really hope you can join me then. Let me just see if there's any questions. Can we get a recording of the webinar emailed? Yes, we are going to send out a link to the webinar that will be happening later today or early tomorrow. Looking forward to it. Thank you for that, Irasima. Thank you, Vicki. Marnie, again, I thank you for chiming in. Again, I really appreciate your time. If you guys have any questions, my numbers are going to be on the slides when we send them out. You guys can also contact me at Dr. Haley, DRHALEY, at socialskillscenter.com. Do you have certificates? I don't have a formal certificate, but someone 2 weeks ago asked me about a certificate. I'd be more than happy to type something up and give that to you just to show that you were here. So send me an email. Who asked for that? Gabriella, please send me an email. I'd be happy to send you that. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of people asking for Gabrielle. I got it. Jennifer, I've got that. I would be more than happy to do that. All right. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate you attending, and I look forward to seeing you all again in the near future.